a Noble Media Group member.
America's known our share of tyrants. In response to tyranny, we created one of the greatest guiding documents ever written by mankind. We stood for what was right. We've also made mistakes, but we corrected those mistakes by fighting for what was right both inside our borders and beyond. Today, America faces another challenge: Christian nationalism. Misguided faith and misguided patriotism justifying misguided deeds.
Return the hearts of those who are in power and position to make decisions.
That protest, T-circle, breach the line.
That's not who we are, America. The Constitution is as true today as the day it was ratified. America stands for freedom, and America stands for doing what's right. And it's time we start restoring the American dream. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Restoring the American Dream. Hi, Michael. How are we doing today?
Hey, we're doing great, and welcome to the show. I'm excited about what we're talking about, and we on the Restoring the American Dream try to do a deeper dive into some historical or constitutional issues, all that affects the country from a macro perspective. And tonight we want to talk about what happens to the power of the presidency when Congress abdicates its power. What happens? Who checks the president? Congress, the Constitution, and $1 billion slush fund. I mean, it's not just news, it's history in the making. Because if we cannot dial it back and rein in the powers of the presidency as the Constitution had envisioned it, it's going to continue to spiral out of control even after the current administration is gone. Whether it's Democrat or Republican, I guarantee the next person in office is going to do the same thing or even worse, because the precedent has already been set. So
Absolutely.
We want to tackle that, dive into it, how much power the president should have. And we can go back to the founders and understand what that means and why they have the three branches of government and what each branch was supposed to do and how the check and balance system was supposed to work.
Absolutely. I mean, this is something that's frankly dear to my heart, and it should be dear to everyone's heart. What I've seen over the last many years, and this is not just about Donald Trump. I think it's more about presidents, the last many administrations, is that Congress seems to be abdicating their power or failing to pass legislation because they've become so hyper-partisan. And this really started with Newt Gingrich in the 90s. But they become so hyper-partisan that the only way anything gets done is through executive order. And then, the executive orders, Michael, well, are they constitutional or unconstitutional? Well, they're in place as soon as he signs it. And then many of these have to go all the way up through the Supreme Court. It's not how our system, I don't think, was supposed to work. We set up that each of the three branches of our government has a certain role that it plays, and it has to stay inside that role. And I think what we're seeing right now, and what we've seen in previous presidencies as well, but certainly right now, is that the partisan gridlock in Congress is giving a president a huge reign of powers. That's how I've seen it, Michael. I don't know what your view is, but that's really how I've seen it.
It's giving a distorted view of our Constitution. It's giving one branch much more power, and what happens when that begins to happen is, especially this younger generation, they don't have the history of 50 years. Most people haven't read the Constitution, and they don't really understand what it means. When they hear executive order, they said, well, the president decided. Well, guess what? The executive order is not law. The executive order is just that. It's the executive order, and it can be challenged. It can be overridden by the law, and Congress passes the law. The Congress, the House of Representatives and the United States Senate, they are the one that passes the law, and they control the purse strings.
Yeah.
So the current situation that we're in now is a double whammy, because not only do we have this $1 billion fund that is controlled by the executive branch, unchecked and
Hmm.
unfettered by Congress. It's just crazy what this money is being allocated and being used for. I mean, I listen, my head was about to explode when I heard
Yeah.
that the president was suing his own administration
For $10
for
billion.
money,
dollars.
for $1 billion. It's insane.
It
It's
is.
insane that we find ourselves in this situation while at war,
Yep.
while trying to resolve other matters globally, and being in the sense of this, this kind of a global, I don't want to say quagmire, but this global situation in which some things need to happen, some things need to move forward. I heard one of the administrative officials say, well, this president doesn't like to leave anything undone for the next administration. He doesn't want to kick the can down the beach. Okay, I get it. And there's a part of me that supports that.
Hmm.
But then at the same time, I'm saying, okay, but what's going to be left in terms of the practices of the office? I'm not
Hmm.
talking about the man or the person occupying the offices, but the practices of the office. If we don't check the powers or allow the constitutional outline to check those powers, we're going to be in a world of hurt.
We are, and there's. I think what we're going to do, if I can, Michael, I'd like to share, a little bit of slides with you, and some, just to kind of get a grip on how many executive orders have been signed over the last many
Mm.
administrations, and then let's talk about that from kind of where we're at today, and how we might be able to fix it. Well, so I'm going to go back to George Bush, George W. Bush. I'll just clean that here, be clear on that one. In the 8 years he was president, he signed 291 executive orders. Uh, Barack Obama, between 2009 and 2017, signed 277 executive orders. Joe Biden, when Joe Biden was president, from 2021 through 2026, I mean, technically, that's when he was president. He signed 242, I'm sorry, 162 executive orders. I beg your pardon. Now I want to show one last slide. Donald Trump. Um, Donald Trump signed 220 executive orders in his first 4 years in his first term. As of a few days ago, he has already signed another 259 executive
Wow.
orders. So he's at 479 executive orders as of right now. That is unprecedented. I don't think in my research that we've ever had anything close to that as a country with any president. Before I jump, and I've always been honest. Everybody knows this if you watch me. I have Trump derangement syndrome. I've had Trump derangement syndrome (TDS) since 2015. I'm totally good with that. I get it. I own it. But before I jump down and sound like I'm just picking on Trump, I'm not. Obama signed a lot of executive orders. He did technically take us to war with Libya without going through Congress. Donald Trump has done that. George Bush has effectively done that. I don't think that Congress has even declared war since World War II. Um,
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it's kind of a tricky thing, because no Congress wants, no congressperson wants to be, at the mic, or at the podium saying, oh well, declaring that we should not be at war. In other words, they don't want to necessarily
Hmm.
oppose the president. So that's a tricky issue, because the president does have constitutional authority to take action when needed in defense of the United States. So we don't have to get
Yeah.
bogged down in a political
Yep.
debate or a congressional debate over that. However, after 90 days, he must come back. We must come back, and the Constitution says that they must come back. And now the Congress has to weigh in on this, and they have to be not just briefed, but they have to agree that this is indeed a war that they can fund, because that's where the tricky thing comes
Purse
in.
strings.
Congress controls the checkbook.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's the spending without congressional support is crazy. I mean, the founders understood human nature. They understood that unless power is if power is not restrained, then we end up with a monarchy. And
Yeah.
they were the founders were, guess what? They were declaring their independence from a monarchy. So the whole purpose of this grand experiment of self-government was, can we be governed, and can government have checks and balances? And what we are saying, is that, yes, that experiment, I hope that experiment's not gone,
Yeah.
because I'm certainly not ready to live or have my grandkids live under a monarchy. Or it's even worse than a monarchy. It's a broken, failed constitutional system. If we do not, as Americans, and particularly Congress, don't stand up, and it's not about this particular president, it's not about politics, it's about the office and the Constitution. And I keep coming back to the Constitution, and I'm worried that not many young people have read it, understand it, or see it. They just see, oh, oh, I hate Donald Trump, or look what Donald Trump is doing. No, it's bigger than that. It's bigger than the man. It's bigger than the office. It's about the Constitution and the powers that we have given as a country, as a constitutional republic, the powers that we invest in the executive branch.
And I'm glad you brought that up because, and again, this is going to sound like me picking on Trump, which I will, but let me just put it in a bigger frame. So today, and I read this maybe just a couple of hours ago, so a lot of people may not know this yet, but uh, Todd Blanche, who was Trump's personal lawyer, by the way, put out a memorandum, and goes back to the $1.776 billion slush fund that Trump gets. But he also got, and sweetened the deal, because he also got a memorandum signed by Todd Blanche, who is the acting attorney general. He is only number two, supposed to be number two at the DOJ. He's not, because Trump fired the last one. Well, he put out and signed I don't know if you'd call it a memorandum or an order, I'm not sure what the right term is, but he said that neither Donald Trump, any organization connected with Donald Trump, uh, not his kids, not anybody connected in his family. No one can ever be sued by the IRS or be followed up for any tax or legal failures that he has failed to do. Not him, not his kids, not his organizations. The number two at the DOJ said that nobody can ever touch Donald Trump and sue him for his taxes. Now, yeah, I am going to pick on Donald Trump because I think that that's just absolute in your face, blatant corruption. But listen, Republicans, if you're like, well, yeah, because the Biden DOJ weaponized the DOJ or some nonsense, which he didn't. But even if that's your argument, let me just tell you what's happening, because if Donald Trump does this, well, are you going to be okay if the next AOC or whoever the next Democratic president is does it? They put in their own personal lawyer to run the DOJ and they
Right.
get off scot free. What you're doing, Michael, is we're creating kings.
Right.
We are literally creating kings when you put that much power over the executive branch. And that's what I want to come back to, because that we're in a place we just haven't been before.
Yeah, the founders understood that the Constitution was designed to prevent one person from becoming too powerful. And in
Yeah.
fact, in Article 1, Section 9, it says that no money shall be drawn from the treasury, but in consequence of apparitions made by law. Appropriations, I'm sorry,
Appropriation, yeah.
appropriations made by law. So if Congress doesn't appropriate the funds, those monies cannot be drawn out, they cannot be allocated, and they cannot be spent on frivolous things, nor even defense or anything else, because the Congress of the United States of America has America's checkbook. And if they have to approve spending, they conduct oversight hearings, they investigate misuse of funds, and they can impeach officials when necessary. That is the power that the Constitution gives to Congress. And when they abdicate that responsibility, well, we get what we've got.
Hmm.
And that's a dangerous place to be in.
I can guarantee you that if the $1776 billion, let's just call it the $2 billion because it's basically $2 billion.
Right.
I can guarantee you there is no chance that would make it through Congress. Senator Toon, the majority leader, Senate Majority Leader Toon, has already said no. No, I said I'm not a big fan of it, and there's been others that have spoken out against it. I mean, do you really see Collins or Murkowski or anybody else saying, yeah, let's give the president $2 billion, to use in any way that he wants, with no oversight by Congress at all? There's none. What they're doing
It's
is they're painting this thing as, it was a settlement. So no, no, this is. I mean, you're talking about $2 billion settlement because somebody released his taxes. Okay,
right,
so it's
right. And
no, this thing stinks to high heavens.
it does.
But
It
again,
absolutely does.
I keep wanting to come back to, if you let Donald Trump get away with it, be prepared for every president and Democratic president to do exactly the same thing. And that's not going to be that's a great way to break the Constitution and break our country. So
Well, we're already doing it. It's already in violation of constitutional. And honestly, the way the Supreme Court works is they don't weigh in on the matter until the matter is presented to them by the court or by with plaintiffs or with someone. And if no one's making an argument and no one's raising this case or bringing this case to the Supreme Court, and who would have to bring it? Well, probably a member of Congress or someone that has standing and is able to bring that before then, and it works its way up through the court
mhm,
system and through injunctions and stays and lower courts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and eventually works its way up to the Supreme Court. So but the idea is checks and balances.
mhm,
Laws are made by Congress, spending is done by Congress, the laws are interpreted by the Supreme Court and the courts, and those laws are executed by the executive branch. That's the way it's supposed to work. Now, can the executive branch provide leadership? Absolutely. They set the tone. Absolutely. They can go to war. Yes. I believe the Constitution gives the president the ability to go to war, to declare war. However, Congress has to back it up with spending, and Congress can withhold money. And so it is ill advised that any president go to war without the backing of Congress, because if they decide to slow down the money, there's no place to get it. But you know, we've broken that system,
mhm.
and we're in a dangerous place, to be able to bring it back.
Yeah,
Not the good old days, but to bring it back, because we want the balance of power. We
mhm,
need the balance of power, just as the founders understood that no person, no one person, I couldn't handle that much power. I couldn't
yeah,
handle that much power. It's just, it's crazy, because why? I don't have that much faith in my moral judgment. I don't have that much faith in my moral judgment.
yeah.
That's what the laws are for. That's what those guardrails are for.
Yeah, and and what I've seen too, and this is a subject we're going to have to discuss a lot more than we can get in 30 minutes. But what we're seeing that is happening right now is a breakdown of the legislative branch of government, such that now the only check and balance on the
Mm,
presidency is the court system, the judicial branch. And
wow.
as you said, and it's in some ways it's a good thing. It takes a while to get all the way through and be resolved. But let me give you a good example. And again, I'm gonna beat up Donald Trump for a second because I think what he did is just is pure in your face corruption. So the legal system did get involved into this. So here, so for the audience that's watching, let me explain the steps. Okay, number one, Donald Trump sued the IRS for $10 billion because somebody released his tax returns. Number two, Donald Trump gets reelected. Number three, he takes the lawsuit and it goes to the court system. And the judge in the federal court system said, I don't think you can do this. This isn't legal because you can't be both plaintiff and defendant in the same case. And so she said, I need to see some briefs from both sides, if there is a both sides, okay? I need to see some briefs so that I can rule on this and whether or not this can even proceed at all. Well, days before those briefs were supposed to be submitted, surprise, Todd Blanche, his number two, the literally his own personal lawyer, signs off and says, "Oh no, we settled with Donald Trump, so there's no reason for us to come in here and follow the legal suit anymore." Folks, that is banana republic stuff. Okay, that is banana republic kind of stuff. So the court systems were involved, but it they were incapable of being able to resolve it in a large part because of what's happening in Congress. And people are going to say, well, it's maybe it'll get picked back up and he'll get sued and maybe all that'll stop. And that's fine. But here's the deal. And they say, well, Donald Trump wouldn't do corruption in plain sight. Here's another thing where I'm going to come back. And it sounds like I am picking on Trump, but I want to make it clear how this impacts the presidency. So since the Supreme Court has said that the executive branch, the president of the United States, cannot be indicted or anything else, or by
Cannot
his
be
own
held
DOJ.
criminally liable.
He
So he's
cannot be
not
held criminally
criminally
liable.
liable.
So unless he gets impeached and removed from office because he runs the DOJ technically. So
Right.
we are already creating a situation to where we're creating kings, okay? And when you do stuff like this, it isn't just Donald Trump that's going to get away with it. It's going to be other people and other folks running for presidency because everybody's going to want to run for presidency now because it's a free ticket to do whatever you want because nothing bad can ever happen to you. So,
Well, it's just it's absolutely crazy. Now, in a two-party system, unfortunately,
mhm,
there's no check and balance in those systems because everybody says, if you notice, every critique that the president has about an opposition voice, an opposing voice. He says those Democrats. That's sowing seeds of dysfunction in the minds and hearts of every American who's listening. And they go,
mhm,
oh, yeah. So if you happen to agree with the president, you go, well, the Republicans are good and the Democrats are bad. Or the Democrats are passing bad laws and the Republicans are passing good laws. That's not the truth
that's right.
because we have always, and George, going back to George Washington, he talked about bipartisanism. He talked about political corruption. He talked about political ideology that could really sink our country. He understood it because he had seen the way it worked in the European system, even with the monarchy.
Hmm.
It's absolutely crazy. We cannot allow ourselves to go down that road. And because we were going to talk about at some point that the whole idea of gerrymandering and what's happening as the redistricting lines are being drawn and why that's happening. And so when that power is being used in a way that does not benefit the United States, the people of the United States, or when no one can disagree with you because they
Hmm.
don't have standing, or because the DOJ is automatically going to side with you, it's like, wait a minute, where do we really go for justice?
Yeah.
Where is there a just argument? Who is controlling the purse strings? Who is showing restraint? Who is showing some kind of moral backbone to
Yep.
stand up and say, wait a minute, this is a violation of the Constitution?
Yeah. Um, we've only got a few minutes, and I want to do this. We need to deep dive this thing a lot deeper. But let me ask you something, Michael. How do we fix this? Um, let's pretend that every president from this day forward will try to act and do everything that Donald Trump is doing, which I think is a very good chance, by the way. But how do we fix this? Do we have to have another constitutional convention? Do we need to write in some type of a law, or we're going to have to amend the Constitution? I mean, how do we fix this problem? Because as it stands right now, I'm not sure how we do it.
Well, I think honestly, I think it can only be fixed through a bipartisan measure. It can and we're already seeing that any voices from within the Republican Party that are opposing the president or anything that he's doing, he is taking a political
Takes them down.
hacksaw to them
Yep.
and taking them down. And it's because they have money, right? They have money to run other candidates in areas, and listen, I know running for Congress, I can tell you it's all about the money.
Yep.
And so if you're an independent candidate, or if you don't happen to be well backed by billionaires or millionaires, and you're facing a uphill battle for a primary, I'm telling you, it's just not good. So you ask the question, how can it be fixed? I think one way to look at it is to say, can we have a bipartisan voice that stands up and says, hey, this is not right? Or if the Speaker of the House
Yeah.
were to say, no, I'm sorry, Mr. President, or no, I'm sorry, this is not working. This is, we can't do this, because that's where the checks and balances exist right now in the system. The checks and balances exist. The Speaker of the House absolutely can push back and say, well, we're not going for that, because if he calls for a vote from Congress about anything, guess what? He brings it to the floor. He has the power to bring any issue to the floor and can take any action. Even, I'm not talking about impeachment, but I'm talking about restraint of power.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about hearings. I'm talking about the legal mechanisms exist. The problem is they have abdicated their responsibility.
They have. I think you're exactly right. And I don't know how to fix this if we're going to be depending upon the legislative branch, because this goes back to how we opened the very discussion that we're having today, and that is that the legislative branch has become so complacent and so hyper partisan in what they do that they'll never, if it's their president that's sitting in the Oval Office, they're not going to push back on it. They're not going to do it, and it breaks our system a little bit more, and that's what we're seeing today. I know we're out of time here, Michael. I'd like to deep dive this one again, and something else I'd love to chat with you about maybe next time. What about the power of pardons? So that could be another deep dive subject, because
Ah,
I think that badly needs to be reformed as well. And that would take a constitutional amendment, I do believe. But
yeah.
yeah, let's look at maybe talking about that, and sharing some thoughts on that with the audience next time. Everybody, thank you for joining, and thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our media group. You'll get to watch this. You'll get to watch the political arena, the daily news, the hinge of history. All of this is free. It does not cost you a single thing, but it'll give us it'll give us some more followers, and spread the word about some of the people that are watching this. If you like it, press like. If you've got some questions or something you want us to talk about on the show, just tell us, and we will do that. So
We'd love to hear from you.
we will put it on the show. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Thanks, Michael, as always. I really appreciate it. Always love your takes, because I think they're extremely fair and balanced. So thank you, my friend. Okay.
All right.
Thanks,
You.
everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. You've been watching Reverend Michael's Restoring the American Dream. The Noble Media Group is on all major social media platforms. Make sure to give us a follow so you can watch this show and many others.
A Noble Media Group member.